The text message glowed on Dani's phone like a neon sign in a dive bar. Flying to Milan with the girls. Back Sunday, xoxo. I set down my coffee and stared at my wife of 18 years. She was applying lipstick in the hallway mirror, dressed in that black outfit she saves for special occasions, the one that cost more than my monthly truck payment. "Milan, huh?" I said, keeping my voice level. Funny how the girls never seem to know about these trips when I run into them at the hardware store. Dani froze, lipstick halfway to her mouth. In the reflection, I caught something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe, or just annoyance at getting caught. "What's that supposed to mean, Eddie?" "Nothing at all, sweetheart. Have a wonderful time with architecture and gelato." She spun around, designer heels clicking on our hardwood floor. The floor I'd installed myself back when we still pretended to be happy. "You know what? I'm tired of your sarcastic comments about everything I do. Some of us have ambitions beyond fixing broken pipes and hanging drywall." That stung, but I'd learned not to flinch. Eddie Harker, small-time contractor and apparently full-time fool. "You're right. I should be more supportive of your international adventures." Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it fast, but not fast enough. I caught a glimpse of the preview. "Can't wait for tonight. Milan is perfect cover. Love you. T." My stomach dropped, but my face stayed neutral. 23 years of construction work teaches you to keep your reactions internal when the foundation starts cracking. "Who's T?" I asked casually. "What?" Her voice pitched higher. The text, from T, seemed urgent. Dani's face went pale, then flushed red. That's Tiffany, from work. She's coordinating the trip details." Tiffany. Right, Tiffany, who I'd met at the company Christmas party. Tall, blonde, married to an accountant named Steve. Definitely not someone who'd sign texts with a single initial and heart emojis. "Makes sense," I said. Tiffany always struck me as the type to use single letters. Very efficient. "Stop it, Eddie. Just stop." Dani grabbed her leather bag, another purchase that could have covered our daughter's school supplies for a year. "I don't need your permission to travel with my colleagues." "Never said you did." She paused at the door, and for a moment I thought she might come clean. "Tell me about T." Explain why she'd been working late 3 nights a week for the past 2 months. Why she'd started buying new underwear and hiding the receipts. Instead, she said, "Jules is at Mom's until Sunday. Try not to burn the house down while I'm gone." The door slammed. Through the window, I watched her toss the bag into her BMW, the one we'd bought when her firm landed that big municipal contract. She backed out of our driveway without looking back. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the breakfast dishes she'd left behind, and felt something shift inside my chest. Not heartbreak. That would come later. This was something colder, more calculating. I'd built this house with my own hands, installed every light fixture, painted every wall, fixed every squeaky hinge. I'd worked 60-hour weeks to pay for Dani's architecture degree, her professional wardrobe, her networking dinners. I'd been the steady foundation while she reached for the stars, and now she was reaching for someone named T. My phone rang. Big Mike from the boxing gym. "Eddie, you still coming in today? Got some new heavy bags that need hanging." "Yeah," I said, still staring at the door where my wife had disappeared. "I'll be there. Might need to hit something anyway." "Everything all right?" I thought about that text message, about the lies, about 18 years of marriage crumbling while I stood there making jokes about gelato. "Just peachy, Mike. See you in an hour." I hung up and walked to the window. Mrs. Franklin was in her yard next door, pretending to water plants while obviously trying to eavesdrop. She'd probably heard the door slam. In a town like ours, news travels faster than gossip, and gossip travels at light speed. I waved at her. She waved back, looking embarrassed at being caught. The house felt different with Dani gone. Quieter, but not peaceful. More like the silence before a storm. I'd been through enough construction disasters to recognize the signs when something was about to collapse. I grabbed my work boots and headed for the garage. The boxing gym was calling, and I had some thinking to do. About tea, about Milan, about what happens when the foundation of your life develops, cracks you can't repair. But first, I was going to make a few phone calls, starting with Tiffany from Dani's office, just to make sure she had a safe trip to Italy. Something told me she was going to be very surprised to hear about it. Tiffany picked up on the third ring, sounding harried. Hello? Hey Tiffany, it's Eddie. Dani's husband. Hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Oh, hi Eddie. No, it's fine. Just getting the kids ready for soccer practice. What's up? I gripped the phone tighter. Just wanted to wish you girls a safe trip to Milan. Dani was so excited about the architecture tour. Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Eddie, Tiffany said slowly, I'm not going to Milan. I've got 3 soccer games this weekend and my mother-in-law's birthday party. What architecture tour? The confirmation hit like a sledgehammer to the chest. My mistake. Must have misunderstood. You know how Dani gets excited about work trips. Work trips? Tiffany's voice sharpened. Eddie, is everything okay? Dani hasn't mentioned any business travel to me, and I handle most of the firm's travel arrangements. I forced a laugh. Probably just wires crossed. You know how it is. Thanks, Tiffany. Say hi to Steve. I hung up before she could ask more questions. So, no Milan, no girls' trip, no architecture tour. Just my wife, somewhere with tea, living a lie that was apparently worth throwing away 18 years of marriage. I sat in my truck outside Big Mike's gym, watching normal people live their normal lives. A mom pushing a stroller, an old man walking his dog, a couple holding hands as they crossed the street. Simple, honest moments that I'd taken for granted until about 10 minutes ago. My phone buzzed. Text from Dani. Boarding now. Flight delayed but should land on time. Love you. I stared at the message. Even her lies had lies. She was somewhere local, probably checking into a hotel with tea and sending me fake updates about international travel. The audacity was almost impressive. I walked into Mike's gym, breathing in the familiar smell of sweat and leather. Mike looked up from wrapping his hands, took one look at my face, and pointed toward the heavy bags. Whatever it is, take it out on the equipment, not yourself. I spent an hour hitting things. It helped clear my head, if not my conscience. By the time I'd worked through 3 rounds on the heavy bag and 2 on the speed bag, I'd made some decisions. First, I wasn't going to confront Dani directly. Not yet. She'd just deny everything, and I'd look like the paranoid husband. Second, I was going to find out who T was. In a town this size, secrets don't stay buried long. Third, I was going to document everything. Photos, texts, receipts. If this marriage was ending, I wasn't going down without evidence. Mike handed me a towel. Feel better? Getting there. Want to talk about it? I considered telling him. Mike had been through 2 divorces and came out the other side with his sanity intact. But something held me back. Maybe pride. Maybe the hope that I was wrong about everything. Maybe later, I said. Right now I need to run some errands. The errands started at Dani's office. I knew the building well. I'd done some electrical work there 2 years ago when they expanded. The receptionist, Kelly, remembered me. Eddie? How nice to see you. Here to surprise Dani? Something like that. She around? Kelly frowned. She left about an hour ago. Said she had a client meeting that might run late. Didn't mention you were stopping by. Client meeting? Right. Any idea which client? Might catch up with her there. Oh, I don't think it was a regular client. She seemed, I don't know, excited? Nervous? She changed clothes twice before she left. My chest tightened. Changed clothes? into that pretty black dress. You know, the one she wore to the Christmas party? She looked beautiful. The same black dress she'd worn to leave the house this morning. The one she'd claimed was for international travel. Did she mention when she'd be back? Kelly shook her head. She blocked out the whole weekend on her calendar, said she needed to focus on this project without interruptions. I thanked Kelly and walked back to my truck, pieces clicking together like a puzzle I didn't want to solve. Dani had lied to everyone. Me, her co-workers, probably our daughter. She'd constructed an elaborate fiction just to spend a weekend with T. The question was, who was T? I drove through downtown, past the restaurants and bars where Dani sometimes met clients. Nothing. Then I remembered something Kelly had said about Dani being nervous, changing clothes. That suggested somewhere special. Somewhere worth the elaborate deception. On a whim, I drove toward the Lake District, 15 minutes outside town, where the expensive houses sat on waterfront lots and city folks rented cabins for romantic weekends. I was about to give up when I saw it. Dani's BMW parked outside a renovated cottage with a rental sign in the yard, and next to it, a silver Audi I didn't recognize. My hands shook as I parked across the street, hidden behind a cluster of pine trees. Through the cottage's front window, I could see movement. 2 figures on a couch. I grabbed my phone and zoomed in with the camera. The image was grainy, but clear enough. Dani, still in that black dress, curled up against a man I'd never seen before. Young guy, maybe late 20s, with the kind of carefully styled hair that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. So this was T. I took photos. Lots of them. The cars, the cottage, the cozy scene through the window, evidence for whatever came next. As I was about to leave, the cottage door opened. T stepped outside, stretching, looking pleased with himself. He was everything I wasn't. Young, polished, confident in the way that only comes from never having to worry about mortgage payments or college funds. He walked to his Audi and pulled out a bottle of wine. Expensive stuff, judging by his careful handling. This wasn't a casual affair. This was a production. I waited until he went back inside, then drove home to my empty house. The silence felt different now. Not lonely, but calculating. I had work to do. I spent the evening researching. The cottage was listed on 3 different rental sites. The silver Audi was registered to Trevor Mason, age 28, address in the trendy part of downtown. A quick social media search revealed Trevor Trey Mason, freelance graphic designer, with a portfolio full of sleek corporate logos and a lifestyle that suggested more money than most freelancers ever see. By midnight, I knew everything I needed to know about my wife's weekend lover. His favorite restaurants, his gym membership, his coffee shop habits, even his ex-girlfriend's name. Knowledge is power, and power is what I'd need for what came next. Dani texted me at 11:47 p.m. "Milan is gorgeous. Wish you could see it. Missing you already." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Missing you too. Enjoy the architecture." Then I turned off my phone and went to bed in our empty house, planning my next move. Sunday evening, Dani came home glowing. Literally glowing, with that satisfied flush that comes from a weekend of doing exactly what you want without consequences. She'd even picked up a tan, which was impressive for someone who'd supposedly spent 2 days touring Italian museums. "How was Milan?" I asked from the kitchen table, where I'd been waiting with a beer and a folder full of photos. "Amazing." She dropped her bag and launched into an elaborate story about cathedral architecture and gelato flavors. She'd done her homework, probably spent the car ride home Googling Italian travel blogs. "Sounds incredible. Tiffany have a good time too?" The slightest pause. "Oh yes, she loved the Duomo." "That's great. I talked to her yesterday, by the way." Dani froze halfway through unpacking her bag. "You... what?" "Called to wish you girls safe travels. Funny thing though, she seemed confused about the whole Milan trip. almost like she didn't know anything about it. The color drained from Dani's face. For a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. "I can explain," she started. "I'm sure you can. You've gotten pretty good at explanations lately." I opened the folder and spread the photos across the table. "But before you do, maybe you can explain these." The pictures told the story better than words. Dani and Trevor at the cottage, their cars parked side by side. The wine, the intimate positioning on the couch, the obvious lies about international travel. Dani stared at the photos like they were evidence of a crime, which, morally speaking, they were. "Eddie, Save it." I stood up, surprised by how calm I felt. 18 years, Dani. 18 years of marriage, and this is how you handle whatever midlife crisis you're having? With some kid who probably wasn't even born when we bought this house? Her shock was giving way to anger. "You followed me? You spied on me." "I verified some inconsistencies in your story. Big difference." "This is exactly why She stopped herself. "Why you what?" "Why you decided to lie to everyone who cares about you. Why you chose to sneak around instead of having an adult conversation about whatever's wrong with our marriage." Dani sat down hard in the chair across from me. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked small, vulnerable. The confident architect who commanded corporate boardrooms was gone, replaced by someone who looked lost. "I didn't plan this," she said quietly. "But you did it anyway." "Yes." "For how long?" She stared at her hands. 2 months. 2 months of lies. 2 months of working late and client meetings and mysterious text messages. 2 months of me being the faithful husband while she played house with Trevor. Who is he? A designer. We met when the firm hired him for the Riverside project. He makes me feel young again, alive. And I make you feel what? Old? Boring? You make me feel like a small-town wife, married to a small-town contractor who's never going to want anything more than this. She gestured around our kitchen, our home, the life we'd built together. The words hit harder than I'd expected. This isn't enough for you. It used to be. But I'm 43 years old, Eddie. I see these young professionals at work, traveling, taking risks, building careers that matter, and I come home to discussions about Jules's soccer schedule and whether we can afford to fix the roof. The roof that keeps you dry, in the house I built for you. I know, and I'm grateful I am. But grateful isn't the same as happy. I gathered up the photos, stacking them neatly. So what happens now? I don't know. Well, here's what I know. You lied to me, to our daughter, to your coworkers, and probably to yourself. You threw away 18 years for 2 months with some kid who drives a car worth more than most people's annual salary. And you did it all while I was here, being the steady, reliable husband you apparently can't stand. Tears were running down her face now. Eddie, please, can we try to work through this? I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something fundamental shift inside my chest. The woman I'd married was still there, somewhere under the guilt and desperation. But she was buried beneath layers of lies and choices that couldn't be undone. I don't know if we can, I said honestly. But I know we can't do it while you're still lying to me. I'm not. Are you going to see him again? The pause was answer enough. Right. I stood up. I'm going to stay at Mike's tonight, give you some space to figure out what you actually want. But Dani, the next time we talk, I want the truth. All of it. No more Milan stories, no more client meetings, no more explanations that insult both our intelligence. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. Eddie, wait. I turned back. She was still sitting at the table, surrounded by the evidence of her deception, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix this. Only honesty can do that. and I'm not sure you remember how. I left her there with the photos and the silence, and drove to Mike's gym. He took one look at my face and handed me a beer without asking questions. "Couch is yours as long as you need it," he said. I nodded, grateful for friends who understood that sometimes a man needs space to figure out how his life fell apart while he wasn't paying attention. Outside, it started to rain. I listened to it hitting the gym's metal roof and wondered if Dani was texting Trevor about her evening, about the photos, about the husband who'd finally stopped being conveniently blind. Tomorrow, I'd have to figure out what came next. Tonight, I just wanted to sit in the quiet and accept that my marriage was probably over. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing that maybe, deep down, I wasn't entirely surprised. I didn't sleep much at Mike's. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photos. Dani curled up with Trevor like they were starring in some romantic movie, while I was at home fixing the garbage disposal and wondering why my wife seemed so distant lately. Mike was up early, as usual. He handed me coffee and sat down across from his desk in the gym office. "You want to talk about it now?" I told him everything. The Milan lie, the photos, the confrontation. Mike listened without interrupting, which is why he's been my best friend for 15 years. "So what's your plan?" he asked when I finished. "Don't have one yet." "Bull. You've got that look you get when you're solving a problem. Same look you had when the Henderson project went sideways last year." He was right. I'd been thinking all night, and the thoughts weren't charitable. "She wants to play games," I said slowly. "Fine, but she's playing against someone who knows all her moves." Mike raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning I built our life, Mike. I know where every dollar goes, every password, every weakness in her carefully constructed world. She thinks I'm just the boring contractor husband who'll sit quietly while she figures out her feelings." "And you're not?" I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Not even close. I drove home Monday morning to find Dani gone and a note on the kitchen counter. "Staying at Mom's for a few days. Need time to think. Please don't call." Perfect. I needed time too. I started with the finances. We had joint accounts, joint credit cards, joint everything. Dani made good money at the firm, but I handled all the practical stuff: bills, investments, insurance. She'd never paid attention to the details. Big mistake. I moved half our savings to a new account in my name only. Legal since it was marital property, but it would get her attention. Then I called our credit card companies and requested new cards due to suspicious activity. The old cards would be canceled within 24 hours. Next, I canceled her gym membership, her magazine subscriptions, and her premium coffee delivery service. Small things, but they'd add up to a very annoying day when she tried to use them. By noon, I was feeling better than I had in months. My phone rang. "Dani." "Eddie, what did you do? My cards aren't working." "Fraud protection," I said cheerfully. "Someone's been using them for unauthorized purchases lately. Rental cottages, expensive wine, that sort of thing. I figured better safe than sorry." "This isn't funny." "You're right. It's not funny at all. 18 years of marriage ending because you wanted to play house with some kid isn't funny. It's tragic. I told you I needed time to think. And I'm giving you all the time you need, just not with my money funding your thinking process." She hung up on me. 20 minutes later, she called back. "I need access to our accounts, Eddie. I have bills to pay." "So do I. Funny how that works." "Don't be petty." "Petty. Right. Tell you what, Dani, come home, and we'll sit down like adults and figure out how to handle this. Keep hiding at your mother's while you decide between your husband and your boyfriend, and you can figure out your own finances. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You're married to me or you're not. You're committed to our family or you're not. Pick one." Another hang-up. I spent the afternoon at work, installing cabinets in a kitchen renovation. Physical labor helped clear my head, and by evening, I'd made more decisions. I drove to downtown, to the trendy district where Trevor lived. His Audi was parked outside a converted loft building that probably cost more per month than most people's mortgages. I didn't do anything dramatic, just parked across the street and watched. At 7:30, Trevor came out wearing designer jeans and a shirt that probably cost more than my work boots. He looked around nervously before getting in his car. Interesting. The boy was jumpy. I followed him to an upscale restaurant where he met Dani. She looked stressed, gesturing frantically as she talked. Trevor kept checking his phone, looking uncomfortable. Trouble in paradise. I took more photos, then drove home to my empty house. On the kitchen table was another note from Dani. "We need to talk. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., please." I crumpled up the note and threw it away. Then I wrote my own note and left it where she'd find it. "Happy to talk. Bring Trevor if you want. Time for everyone to be honest." Tuesday dragged. I worked, ate lunch at the diner where half the town comes to gossip, and listened to Mrs. Franklin speculate about why Dani's car hadn't been in our driveway lately. "Everything all right with you two?" she asked with the fake concern that gossips use when they're fishing for information. "Just peachy, Mrs. Franklin. Marriage is all about communication, and we're communicating better than ever." She looked confused, but I was already walking away. At 6:45 p.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table with a beer and the folder of photos when I heard Dani's car in the driveway. She came in alone, looking like she hadn't slept much. "Where's Trevor?" I asked. "This is between us, Eddie." "No, it's between all three of us. He's part of this mess whether he wants to be or not." Dani sat down across from me, and I could see she'd been crying. "He thinks we should slow down, give you and me a chance to work things out." "How noble of him." "Don't be sarcastic. This is hard enough." "Hard for who? You? Him? What about me, Dani? What about Jules? Did it occur to either of you that your decisions affect other people?" "Of course it did. That's why I'm here." I opened the folder and pulled out a photo of her and Trevor on the cottage couch, looking very comfortable together. "This says otherwise." She stared at the photo. "I made a mistake." "Which part? The affair or getting caught?" "Both. All of it." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "I want to save our marriage, Eddie. If you'll let me try." For a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. Then I remembered the Milan lie, the elaborate deception, the 2 months of looking me in the eye and lying about where she'd been. "What about Trevor?" "It's over. I told him today." "And he was okay with that?" She hesitated. "He understood." "Right." I leaned back in my chair. "Here's what's going to happen, Dani. You're going to tell me everything. Every lie, every meeting, every detail of your 2-month vacation from our marriage. And then we're going to figure out if there's anything left worth saving. Eddie, everything, Dani, or this conversation is over." She took a shaky breath and started talking. And for the first time in months, my wife told me the truth. It was worse than I'd imagined. The truth, as it turned out, was a masterpiece of deception that would have impressed a professional con artist. Dani had met Trevor at a coffee shop near her office, not on the Riverside project like she'd claimed. He'd approached her, complimented her presentation skills at a public city planning meeting, and suggested they collaborate on some freelance work. "He made me feel smart," she said, staring at her hands. "Not just like someone's wife or someone's mother, but like a professional who had valuable ideas." The freelance work was fiction. Trevor was between jobs, living off credit cards and family money, looking for someone to fund his lifestyle while he built his portfolio. Dani had been paying for their dinners, their hotel rooms, even some of his rent. "How much?" I asked. "About $3,000 over 2 months. $3,000 of our money, spent on her boyfriend's bills while I worried about Jules's college fund." "There's more," she continued. He's been talking about us moving in together, getting a place downtown, starting fresh. And you considered it? For about 5 minutes, until I realized he expected me to pay for everything while he worked on his art. So Trevor wasn't just a homewrecker. He was a gold digger who'd targeted my wife like a mark in a confidence game. The knowledge should have made me feel better, but it didn't. Dani had still chosen him over me, even temporarily. Is that why you want to work things out? Because your boyfriend turned out to be a user? No. She looked up at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen in months. The woman I'd married. I want to work things out because I realized I was running away from problems instead of solving them, and because I hurt the one person who never deserved it. We talked until midnight, about her feeling trapped in our small town, about my tendency to avoid difficult conversations, about how we'd both stopped trying to really see each other somewhere along the way. By the time she left to go back to her mother's, we'd agreed to try counseling. It felt like progress, even if I wasn't sure I believed in it yet. But I wasn't done with Trevor. Wednesday morning, I did some research. Trevor Mason had a pattern. 3 previous relationships with older, financially stable women. Each had ended when the women discovered he was using them for money and connections. He had outstanding debts with 2 local businesses and a history of writing checks that bounced. My wife hadn't been seduced by a charming young professional. She'd been targeted by a predator who specialized in midlife crises. I made some phone calls. Henderson Construction. This is Paul. Paul, it's Eddie Harker. You still looking for someone to handle the graphic design on your new office complex? Yeah. Why? You know someone good? Maybe. Guy named Trevor Mason. Supposed to be very talented. You should give him a call. I gave Paul Trevor's number and a brief description of his portfolio. Paul was a good guy, but he was also a shrewd businessman who didn't tolerate nonsense. If Trevor tried his usual routine, Paul would see through it immediately. Then I called Jim Morrison, who owned the biggest restaurant in town. Jim, Eddie Harker, my wife mentioned you might need some marketing help. There's this designer, Trevor Mason, who's been doing some impressive work locally. You might want to check him out. By noon, I'd made 6 similar calls. Trevor was about to get very busy with potential clients who wouldn't be impressed by his charm or his expensive car. Thursday evening, Dani called. Eddie, something weird is happening. Trevor's been getting calls all day from local businesses wanting to hire him. He thinks it's because word is spreading about his talent. That's great, I said. Local talent should be recognized. He's excited. Says this could be his big break in our market. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Friday afternoon, my phone rang. Paul Henderson. Eddie, you need better friends. What happened? That designer you recommended? Complete amateur. Showed up an hour late, had no real portfolio, and quoted me 3 times what the work should cost. Then he suggested I pay half up front because he's in high demand. Sorry to hear that, Paul. No problem. But you might want to warn people about this guy. I talked to Jim Morrison, and he had the same experience. Kid's either delusional or running some kind of scam. By Saturday, Trevor's reputation in town was thoroughly destroyed. 6 potential clients had all reached the same conclusion. He was unprofessional, overpriced, and possibly dishonest. Dani called that evening, sounding confused. Trevor's having the worst week. All these business meetings and none of them worked out. He says the people here don't appreciate real talent. That's too bad. Maybe he should try a different market. He's thinking about moving to Chicago, says there's no future for him here. Probably smart. Small towns can be limiting for creative types. What I didn't tell her was that I'd also made some calls to Chicago. Trevor would find the market there surprisingly unwelcoming as well. Sunday, Dani came home. Not to stay, she clarified, but to get some clothes and talk about our first counseling appointment. Trevor left for Chicago this morning, she said while packing a suitcase. He said this town was too small for his ambitions. Did he say goodbye? She paused, folding a sweater. Not exactly. He texted me from the road. said it was better to make a clean break. So Trevor had run rather than face the consequences of his actions. No surprise there. Predators typically move on when the hunting gets difficult. How do you feel about that? I asked. Relieved, mostly, and embarrassed. I can't believe I fell for his act. Smart people make dumb choices sometimes. Doesn't mean you're stupid. She looked at me with something like gratitude. You're being very understanding about this. I'm trying to save my marriage, Dani. That means focusing on us, not on him. It was true, as far as it went. I was trying to save my marriage, but I was also discovering that I had a talent for strategic thinking that I'd never fully explored. Trevor was gone, but the problems that had driven Dani to him were still here. The counseling would help, assuming we both committed to it. But I'd learned something important over the past week. I wasn't the passive, steady husband everyone thought I was. When pushed, I could push back. Hard. And if anyone else tried to threaten what was mine, they'd find out just how creative a small-town contractor could be. Dani finished packing and headed for the door. I'll see you Tuesday for counseling. I'll be there. She paused at the door. Eddie, thank you for fighting for us instead of just giving up. After she left, I sat in my kitchen and thought about fighting. About the difference between being steady and being passive. About the satisfaction of watching a predator discover that some prey fights back. Our marriage might survive this. It might not. But either way, I'd learned something valuable about myself. I wasn't just Eddie Harker, small-town contractor anymore. I was Eddie Harker, small-town contractor who'd figured out how to win.